The late October sun casts its golden light over the Spokane Valley in eastern Washington state as a 100-car unit tank train heads for the Bakken oil fields of North Dakota. The train is traveling over a busy section of BNSF's Northern Transcon, following in the tracks of the Northern Pacific and later the Burlington Northern. This 70-mile-long corridor between Spokane and Sandpoint sees some of the heaviest rail traffic in the Northwest. Welcome to The Funnel. Seven Idea Productions paid several visits to this scenic line through Washington and northern Idaho. Our tour begins at Latah Junction, where trains roll in and out of downtown Spokane. Heading east, trains race through the forested hills of northern Idaho. And cross the 5,000-foot-long Lake Pend Oreille Bridge at Sandpoint. With well over 50 trains per day on a line with several sections of single track, dispatchers and crews have to stay on their toes to keep things rolling. Our cameras will show you the funnel in different seasons and types of weather. From clear summer days to cool winter nights. This is great railroading action you don't want to miss. This is The Funnel, BNSF Railway's Spokane subdivision. The funnel runs from northeast Washington into the Idaho panhandle on a 70-mile route between Spokane and Sandpoint. We will be traveling west to east over this portion of BNSF's Spokane subdivision, beginning at Latah Junction. The tracks travel in an easterly direction through Spokane, Irvin, and Otis Orchards before crossing into Idaho and arriving at BNSF's new fueling facility at Hauser. From there, the tracks travel in a northeasterly direction through Rathdrum, Athol, Granite, Cocolalla, and Algoma before crossing Lake Pend Oreille and arriving at Sandpoint Junction. The funnel officially begins at Latah Junction, just west of downtown Spokane. The former Great Northern plus Spokane, Portland, and Seattle lines combine with the Northern Pacific, creating a high-density corridor between Spokane and Sandpoint Junction in northern Idaho. An empty Boeing 737 train approaches the junction on the north leg of the Y. BNSF 6826 East has traveled over former GN track via Stevens Pass and is bound for Wichita, Kansas. The crew on board hope to tie up at Hauser, around 22 miles east of here. But with the high density of traffic through the funnel, the last few miles of the trip can often be the longest. Looking toward the junction, we see what the Boeing train is waiting for. A westbound unit grain train is making its way over the 4,260-foot bridge as it departs Spokane. This train will be taking the former SP&S route through Marshall Canyon as it heads for Pasco, Washington, and then through the scenic Columbia River Gorge to Portland. A pair of Dash 9 44CWs lead the train through Latah Junction and over Interstate 90 as it prepares to enter Marshall Canyon. A third radio-controlled Dash 9 shoves on the rear of the heavy grain train as it disappears into Marshall Canyon. With the grainer out of the way, BNSF Dispatcher 72, referred to as the Boyer West Dispatcher, lines the switch at Latah Junction, and the BNSF 6826 gets a signal to enter Spokane. The train is pulling special flat cars designed for hauling Boeing 737 fuselages and parts. The red containers are called skyboxes and are designed for protecting large pieces of the aircraft during transit. We will show you a loaded 737 train later on in the program. Spokane is one of the largest cities in Washington state and is a significant location on the busy BNSF Northern Transcon. Most of the rail traffic running between Chicago and Seattle comes right through this funnel, totaling over 50 trains per day. Moving to the east end of the Latah Creek Bridge, we come to Sunset Junction, where the former Northern Pacific line out of Marshall Canyon joins the funnel. BNSF 6364 West leads a Powder River Basin coal train onto the bridge as it heads out of town. Two EMD SD70 Max provide additional horsepower to the rear of the train for the 1.15% climb into Marshall Canyon. The railroad runs on an elevated grade through the heart of Spokane, reducing congestion in the downtown area. A prominent landmark in Spokane are the two giant smokestacks of the steam plant square, located just east of the Amtrak depot. The steam plant provided heat for most of the major buildings in town before its closure in 1986. Today, the renovated plant houses office space and a restaurant. The stacks measure 225 feet high and were hand-formed using over 333,000 bricks. It makes a great backdrop for Amtrak 27, the Portland section of the Empire Builder, as it heads for the depot in the middle of the night. Just east of the steam plant, a double-stack train led by BNSF 6661 and ES44C4 and Dash 9 number 1086 pass underneath the signal bridge on Main 2. The train slowly makes its way toward the busy yard at Yardley, where it will be changing crews before continuing east on the funnel. The 6661 will meet several trains as it works through town, including a very late-running Amtrak 7. The westbound Empire Builder is running over 9 hours late as it meets the stack train. The BNSF engine was added to the point at Minot, North Dakota, after mechanical issues developed with one of the aging Amtrak Genesis units. Today's westbound number 7 will terminate at Spokane, and its passengers will be bused to their destinations in Portland and Seattle. The train will then be turned to become tonight's eastbound number 8. Later on in the day, we find the same Amtrak train set after being sent around a balloon track at Parkwater. AMTK 84 has been added to the west end of the train, and an Amtrak crew is taking it back toward the depot. As it waits for traffic to clear, UP 5542 approaches with a manifest, bound for Hinkle, Oregon. Union Pacific has trackage rights over the BNSF from Napa Street Junction, just east of here, to UP Junction near Cheney, Washington, where the Ayers sub joins the BNSF. The UP has a yard in Spokane and a route to the Canadian border at Eastport, Idaho, where it interchanges trains with the Canadian Pacific, as well as serving local industry. The constant flow of rail traffic in and out of Spokane keeps both the Yardley tower operator and Boyer West dispatcher on their toes as they work to keep the railroad fluid. With the westbounds out of the way and an eastbound finally on the move, the Amtrak set finally gets a chance to head toward the depot, where it'll become tonight's eastbound number 8. As the train approaches, it meets the BNSF 6508, pulling a set of business cars east. Spokane is a nocturnal stop for both the east and westbound Empire Builder. When the westbound number 7 arrives, it is split into two sections. A shorter number 7 continues over Stevens Pass to Seattle, and the rest of the train becomes the number 27 and heads through the Columbia River Gorge to Portland, Oregon. The eastbound 8 and 28 are put together at Spokane and continue to Chicago as the number 8. The BNSF 5462 is still a part of the consist, and we suspect it'll again be needed on tonight's eastbound trip. Moving east, a pair of Jeeps switch a string of cars near the west end of Yardley, BNSF's main yard in Spokane. The tracks in front of us are in what is known as the Trench, running between Yardley and Napa Street Junction. As the switch crew goes about their business, BNSF 5034 West leads an intermodal train through the trench as it departs the yard. The 3-9s on the point are dressed in the classic Burlington Northern Santa Fe Heritage 2 paint scheme. The late October sun sheds its golden light over Yardley before sinking beneath the western horizon. This former Northern Pacific yard plays an important role with today's BNSF operations through the funnel. Several switchers work about the busy yard, and mainline trains change crews here, as well as at BNSF's new Hauser facility located just over the Idaho state line, around 18 miles away. Besides BNSF, this is the western terminus for Montana Rail Link trains rolling out of Missoula. The east end of Yardley is called Parkwater and contains the old NP locomotive shops, which are still used by the BNSF. The classic engine house harkens to an era when steam engines plied the rails. Our golden sunset has been replaced with a dense fog as we move east to station sign Irvin, milepost 63.3 on the Spokane subdivision. The lights of a westbound manifest cut through the watery shroud as the train approaches on Main 1 on a chilly January morning. The rear of the train slips back into the fog as it approaches the unseen yard to the west. Irvin marks the beginning of a section of single track as the railroad crosses the Spokane River. On a cool summer morning, a doe and a young buck forage for food beneath the huge steel deck truss bridge. While they go about their morning meal, a hot Chicago to Portland Z train crosses the bridge. Here is the same scene in late October as a Chicago to South Seattle Z train crosses the Spokane River. Since the latter part of 2012, crude oil trains have begun running over the funnel. The 100-car unit tank trains head to and from the Bakken oil fields in North Dakota. During our time on location, we saw around 1 unit train per day in each direction. With the glint of the evening sun on the empty oil cans, BNSF 4169 East approaches North Evergreen Road as it heads for the Idaho border. Continuing east, we set up at milepost 59.9 as a Herzog work train heads between Otis Orchards and Irvin. At Otis Orchards, the line goes back to double track near milepost 58.9. 6 miles to the east, the Spokane sub crosses from Washington into Idaho. Set up right at the state line, we catch BNSF 6182 East as it leads an empty coal train toward the Hauser fueling facility. The signal in the distance shows all red, telling us a train will be stopping here until Hauser is ready for them. Milepost 51.5 marks Hauser Junction, where the Coeur d'Alene branch line enters the main. The Hauser local is seen in the cold January twilight, powered by 3 vintage EMDs. The throb of 2 SD40-2s and a GP60B resonates through the night air. The train continues west toward Yardley as we head east along the funnel. 2 signal bridges frame the west end of BNSF's Hauser mainline fueling facility as a westbound Chicago to Tacoma vehicle train gets underway. The 2 CSX engines on the point are a welcome treat. Completed in 2004, the Hauser fueling facility was designed to quickly fuel and service trains while en route to their destinations. Over half of the funnel's traffic stop here to be fueled and serviced during a 24-hour period, and many trains are recrewed as needed. With a high density of traffic, congestion is a problem at both Hauser and Yardley, as trains are often held here until there is a place for them to go. A westbound manifest gets a signal out of Hauser, while other trains wait for their turn to leave. Near the east end of the yard, an empty coal train has been freshly serviced, and the new crew has permission from the Boyer West dispatcher to depart. East of Hauser, the railroad goes back to double track until Rathdrum, milepost 44.6. BNSF 6960 West leads a 17,000-ton Roberts Bank, BC coal train through the small Idaho town. It's the 2nd of November, and a cold, steady rain is drenching the mountainous region of the northern Idaho Panhandle. The warm lights of an eastbound Z train appear as BNSF 5457 rounds a curve at Rathdrum. This is the third of 5 sections of single track found on the funnel. Ramsey is the only siding encountered on the line and is 10,661 feet in length. A Seattle-bound Z train ducks under the signal bridge at the west end. At Athol, the BNSF flies over the UP's Spokane subdivision. As the coal train disappears from view, we hear something behind us and turn to catch a southbound grain train approaching on the UP. CP 8806 South leads the train under the BNSF at Athol on UP's Spokane sub. This train was interchanged from the Canadian Pacific to the UP at Eastport, Idaho, around 100 miles to the north. Unit grain and potash trains make a regular appearance on this line, as well as mixed manifests. Local jobs also serve customers up and down the line. CEFX 1054, a leased GE AC 4400, brings up the rear of the train. Back on the BNSF, a westbound grainer waits at Athol in the meet with a higher priority Z train. In the distance, we see a second westbound holding short of a grade crossing for the meet. The grain train is soon on the move as it heads closer to Hauser. Behind it, BNSF 5113 gets a signal and passes our location. This train contains 4 Boeing 737 fuselages headed for Renton, Washington. Tucked behind 2 skyboxes, the unfinished aircraft ride on custom spacer cars, each with an icebreaker to protect the expensive payload from ice buildup in tunnels. The 737 is the best-selling jet airliner in aviation history, with over 7,700 built since 1968 and over 1,200 in the air at any given time. Every 5 seconds, a Boeing 737 is taking off or landing somewhere in the world, but its first trip was by train. East of Athol, trains pass through a series of cuts and fills to maintain a decent grade. BNSF 4109 East leads a Chicago-bound Z train through an impressive cut at milepost 27. The 0.8% grade for westbound trains here is the steepest on the funnel. On a sunny afternoon, we catch another eastbound Bakken oil train with 100 empty tank cars bound for the oil fields. The car count is actually 102 when you include the buffer cars at each end between the tanks and locomotives. This is done as a safety measure. Behind the oil cans, BNSF 6428 takes grain empties east through the cut. A short time later, a westbound autorack train approaches on Main 1. This is the VCHC TAC, a Chicago to Tacoma vehicle train. Afternoon shadows grow in the cut, as the train continues up the 0.8% grade. On a different day, we catch the BNSF 6538 East as it leads a manifest train through the cut. After exiting the cut, trains roll through a small fill and back into another cut near Granite, as demonstrated by an eastbound stack train. The fill replaced an old bridge over Granite Lake after Northern Pacific's passenger train, the North Coast Limited, derailed on a sharp curve in March of 1962 and plunged into the lake. The engineer and firemen were killed in the accident, along with some passengers. The realignment was completed in 1965. The bridge over Granite Lake was torn down, and a tunnel was bypassed by the cut we are standing on. In August of 2013, BNSF 4006 West powers a hot Z9 through the newer high-speed curve at Granite. It's a cloudy November morning, but today's our lucky day as CSXT 777 takes a loaded grain train over the fill. The remote-controlled CSXT 702 shoves the train through the cut. The granite fill looks more impressive when seen from below, as a Montana Rail Link crew takes an eastbound empty coal train toward Sandpoint Junction. It's October 25th, and evening sets in early on the Idaho Panhandle, and with it, a cold, dense fog. The high green on Main 1 is for a westbound grain train, which is about to cross over the granite fill. The glow of a headlight in the distance announces the approaching train. On our January visit to the funnel, we find some snow on the ground as we set up east of Granite near the crossovers at control point CP223. BNSF 5707 leads train XRGT CCM, a Rivergate, Oregon to Clara City, Minnesota train with 112 empty grain hoppers in tow. It is 6,640 feet in length. A few minutes later, we catch the BNSF 5628 West leading the SCHC TAC, running from Chicago to Tacoma. The train uses the crossovers from Main 2 to Main 1 after passing the maintenance of way on the other track. At milepost 21 between Cocolalla and Granite, we find a Burlington Northern GP39E on the point of a westbound local running between Sandpoint and Spokane. We continue toward Sandpoint heading railroad east, which is actually compass north. A light snow covers the forested Selkirk Mountains, which stretch far into British Columbia, Canada. It's a fantastic winter setting, as BNSF 4638 West leads a mixed manifest train bound for Pasco, Washington. Just west of Lake Cocolalla, the big red Valley Vista Ranch barn makes a nice backdrop for shooting trains on the funnel. We don't have long to wait as BNSF 4029 East appears with a double-stack train on Main 1. It'll be stopping at Cocolalla for 2 westbound Z trains. The stack train comes to a stop to wait for the westbounds. It is fouling a private grade crossing, but it shouldn't be here very long. The red indication on signal 2184 confirms that the first Z train is already approaching. About 10 minutes later, the second Z appears. Boyer West dispatcher is quick to align the switch, and we see the stacked train is already on the move as the trailers continue to pass. Cocolalla is milepost 16.4 and named after the lake in the background. A manifest heads west. The line is again single-track for a short stretch between Cocolalla and West Algoma, a distance of 2.3 miles. The red over green signal, or diverging clear, is for the BNSF 6754 as it leads a westbound grain train onto Main 1. Lake Cocolalla freezes over during the winter months and is a popular place for ice fishing. Today, a lone fisherman tries his luck as another westbound grain train skirts around the edge of the lake with over 15,000 tons of grain in tow. The line goes back to double track at West Algoma and ducks under U.S. Highway 95 near milepost 13. An old Santa Fe war bonnet and a Canadian Pacific unit are in charge of an eastbound stack train. On a cool January afternoon, BNSF 5804 leads a PGE coal train through Algoma. This train brings Powder River Basin coal to the Boardman Coal Plant in Oregon, along the Columbia River. The PGEX hoppers have a unique rose logo that makes this train easy to identify. In late October, larch, aspen, and cottonwood trees are in their golden hour, providing a nice setting for two eastbounds on the last section of double track before crossing Lake Pend Oreille. We are just south of Sandpoint, where the main line meets Lake Pend Oreille. BNSF 6328 East passes milepost 6 as it slowly approaches with an empty oil train. The train is powered by two GE ES44 ACs. You can hear the whine of their dynamic brake fans as the engineer slows the train for the anticipated red signal located around the bend. The train is halted at East Algoma for a maintenance of way crew that is working on the bridge. The dispatcher will grant what is called track-in time if work needs to be done on the main line or a siding. This gives an authorized crew or gang permission to be on a certain section of track for a specific amount of time. After an hour goes by, the crew gives back their track-in time long enough for the Boyer West dispatcher to run a grain train over the bridge. This is the same train with all the CSX power we saw earlier at Granite. Transitioning again to winter, BNSF 6156 West leads another PGE coal train along the snowy shore of Lake Pend Oreille. Back above milepost 6, BNSF 7655 East leads another 112-car empty grain train towards Sandpoint Junction. This train is symboled the X-TAC LAK. Empty grain trains on the BNSF are identified with an X. TAC is the train's point of origin in Tacoma, Washington, and LAK refers to its destination of Lakota, North Dakota. U.S. Highway 95 also crosses Lake Pend Oreille, giving us a chance to film the bridge from another perspective. We follow an empty grain train across the lake on a crisp fall day in 2009. The Pend Oreille Bridge was built by Northern Pacific in 1904, replacing the original bridge built in 1852. It spans nearly 5,000 feet across the lake. This is the last section of single track encountered on the funnel, and one of the most scenic railfan locations in the Northwest. Let's spend some extra time here and take in the view of the bridge from several different locations. BNSF 5628 leads a Chicago to Tacoma stack train across the bridge in a cool winter scene. It is late August in the northern Idaho Panhandle as the evening sun dips into the mountains beyond the lake. The red sky speaks of numerous forest fires burning throughout the northern region. Most started by lightning. Some may be human-caused. In the gathering dusk, BNSF 4445 East prepares to cross the dark waters of the lake. Look carefully at the wood markers sticking out of the lake as we transition from August to November. We are now standing on a piling that was completely underwater just a few months ago. The lake level is lowered significantly every winter in preparation for the following year's spring runoff. There's a bitter breeze blowing off the lake as a westbound Z departs Sandpoint. Lake Pend Oreille covers 148 square miles and reaches a depth of 1,150 feet in some areas, making it the fifth deepest lake in the U.S. A naval training station was even based here during World War II. We have moved to the north end of the bridge, located just outside of Sandpoint. A vacant beach makes a perfect setting for our next train, as BNSF 7663 leads more grain empties east. Behind the grainer, CSXT 5389 leads a manifest with a colorful power lash up into Sandpoint. An evening grain train heads east over the Sand Creek Inlet. Welcome to Sandpoint, Idaho. The Gothic-style depot was built by NP in 1916 and is the oldest remaining active passenger depot of the Northern Pacific. It once saw Riders of the North Coast Limited, and now Amtrak's Empire Builder stops here in the middle of the night. This is how the depot looked in July of 2011, at which time Highway 95 was undergoing a major reroute project around the town of Sandpoint. Looking to the east, a signal bridge marks Sandpoint Junction, the eastern terminus of the funnel. The NP line continues to the right toward Missoula, Montana, and is currently leased by Montana Rail Link. The former GN track heads to the left over the High Line to Whitefish, Montana, and Marias Pass. A westbound grain train comes off the High Line and past the depot. This is how the depot now looks in 2013, with the newly constructed Highway 95 bypass now just a few feet away. At the time of this production, the building was closed to the public for remodeling, but still used by Amtrak as a platform stop. Hopefully, this building will be restored and again be able to serve rail passengers as it has done for nearly a century. At sunset, our final train of the day slowly passes the depot as it approaches Sandpoint Junction and the end of the funnel. A Montana Rail Link crew took charge of this train at Hauser and will make an evening run down MRL's 4th and 10th subdivisions before tying up in Missoula, 218 miles away. Since the forming of the Burlington Northern in 1970, the funnel has been an important link handling the heavy train traffic found across the Northern Transcon. With new export facilities coming to the Pacific Northwest and the Bakken oil boom promising more crude oil trains, the future looks bright and busy for this hotspot visited by rail fans throughout the Northwest and around the world. We hope you've enjoyed this tour of The Funnel, BNSF Railway's Spokane subdivision. Thanks for watching.